Namaskar. I am Advaitavadini Kaul from Delhi, India. Welcoming you all to our panel on Kashmir, the land of feminine supreme. In the month-long Festival of Kashmir being organized by the Global Kashmiri Pandit Diaspora for creating awareness about the rich cultural heritage of our motherland, that's Kashmir. We must admit that the present troubled times has something positive too for all of us. That is why we are here today. Panchastavi, the very popular stotra of Kashmiri Pandits, invokes the goddess as supreme power with her different names, revealing her hidden meanings of all those names. Therefore, I would begin by reciting a shloka from this stotra. Maya kundalini kriyaha madhumati kali kalaha malini matangi vichya jaya bhagavati devi shiva shambhavi Shakti Shankar Vallabha Trinainaha Vakvadini Bhairavi Himkari Tripura Paraha Paramai Mata Kumari Tasin. The ancient sources of Kashmir that are available to us today are Nilmat Purana and Kalhan's Rajtarangini. According to Nilmat Purana, the name Kashmir is given after the goddess Kashmira. The Purana prescribes the worship of the goddess Kashmira. The Nilmat Purana also regards Kashmir as an incarnation of Uma, the consort of Shiva, who on the request of Rishi Kashyapa came bubbling forth as a river to nourish the Kashmir Mandal. On the whole, the text offers a fair picture of the women of Kashmir. She moves freely in the society along with the menfolk. Rivers receives love, honor, and respect. The highest point to note in this regard is that as a mother-to-be, a woman could be installed on the throne on the demise of her sonless husband, that is the king. In the River of Kings, that is the Rajtarangini, we find a number of queens who ruled as guardians, regents, or enjoyed full-fledged power. But what is remarkable about each of them is handling the situations at crucial stages with diligence and with expertise in the dealing with the policies and dealing with different situations. So some of these queens can be named as Yashomati, Sugandha, Didda the Great. Today, the grandees are known as Didda. So it is believed that this comes from the Queen Didda, and the Kota Rani, who is the last Hindu queen of Kashmir. There have been illustrious consorts of the queens like Ishana Devi, Vak Pushta, Anangalekha, Srilekha, Suryamati, Jayamati, Radha Devi, Kalhanika, whose works are quite remarkable. The other noble women characters include military commanders, which we find in Rajtarangini, are Shila and Chuda. We also find a large number of women in Kalhan's Rajtarangini who were great builders. They built viharas, temples, and other structures of public utility. These were included queens, noble ladies, or the ladies from the wealthy families. There are a number of such people who have built many structures for public utility. They did so mainly because of for achieving religious merits. So spirituality and the mundane life was going hand in hand. Kashmiri author Bilhana, who wrote Vikramank Dev Charitra, says about the women of Kashmir that they spoke Sanskrit and Prakrit like their own mother tongue. He writes, Yatra Satrinamapi Kim Aparam Janma Bhasha Vat Eva Pratyavasam Vilasati Vacha Sanskritam Prakritam Cha. There have been women preceptors belonging to different religions and different religious sects. We find such references in many texts. What is important to note here is that there are a few names of Buddhist women preceptors of a very high achievements found in the Tibetan records. We don't find those names here in our records, but we find those names from the records which are preserved in other neighboring countries. Coming to Shaivism, Acharya Abhinavgupta in the 10th century pays highest tributes to his guru, Shambhunatha, who was the master preceptor of the Ardha-Trambaka school of monastic Shaivism, started by Trambakaditya I through his daughter. So this was started by a woman. The Acharya Abhinavgupta's parampara is started by a woman. We find many references to Shaiva yoginis in different Shaiva scriptures. These were just a few pointers to note the place of women in the overall fabric of the Kashmiri society in ancient times. I have with me two co-panelists, Professor Nirja Murthuji and Dr. Usha Mujomunchi. I will first introduce Professor Nirja Murthuji, and I am really privileged and I feel quite honored to do so. She has been highly looked up, her personality, when I was a college student in the Maulana Azad Road College. And personally, she has been my great source of inspiration. I remember the day she empowered me to attempt my translation of the works of Laleshwari. Professor Nirja Mattoo was the principal at the Government College for Women at Maulana Azad Road in Srinagar. And she taught English and is an acclaimed writer and translator. She has written 3 books of Kashmiri short stories titled as The Stranger Besides Me, Contemporary Kashmiri Stories, Kath, Stories from Kashmir. She is co-editor of a book on Bhagwan Gopinath, the Kashmiri saint, and has edited another book, Sharika Devi, a Yogini of Kashmir. She is the chief editor of the quarterly journal Miras, devoted to Kashmiri culture. Her latest book, The Mystic and the Lyric, 4 Women Poets from Kashmir, has been published by Zuban in 2019. She has received well-deserved awards and honors. I don't need to mention all of them here. I invite Professor Neerja ji to speak on the women mystics and poets of Kashmir of the medieval and post-medieval times. And please, Neerja ji, please go ahead.
Thank you, Advaitavadini ji, for all your kind words. Anyway, I'm very pleased to be a part of this panel. And I'm very happy that you started this panel discourse because you are the real scholar as far as I know. I don't know the other young lady, but I'm sure she is equally proficient and equally deserves to be honored. Anyway, I'm very happy to be a part of this thing, as I said just now, because you see, I believe that the women of Kashmir have been, as my niece calls them, tiger ladies. They have fought all kinds of disadvantages but emerged strong and victorious. And the biggest contribution they have made is to Kashmiri literature, because that is my field. So I'll talk about that. You see, the two great streams of poetry in Kashmiri literature are the mystical and the romantic lyric. And the first practitioners and refiners of these two streams were two women. And it is they whose tradition is being followed by hundreds of other poets, men and women. And this tradition continues till today in the works of two remarkable women, Bimla Rana, who is in the mystic domain and who's actually, I think, a practicing mystic also. And there is Naseem Shafai, who writes in the modern sensibility and then lyrical form. And there are other young people who are also following in these trains. And you see, you can see the Laldans, the first person who started this mystic tradition is Lal. Whether you call it Lala Arifa or Laleshwari, she is a common man's poet. She's the one who brought out the complicated, difficult Shaiva concepts from the closets of Brahminism into the open spaces of the common Kashmiri households. Her works are quoted to this day, whether it's Muslims or Hindus, Kashmiri Pandits, there is no difference at all. I would like to remind you of her one famous work, which you must be all aware of, that goes like this. Shiv chui thali thali rauzan, mauzan batat musalman, trukai chuk panun pan prasna, soy chay saiba suidzani zan. For the benefit of my non-Kashmiri audience, I would like to translate it roughly as Shiva is like the sun. No, do not know do not know a Hindu different from a Muslim, because the sun shines on everyone. If you are wise, a trikite, then know yourself. That is what will reach you to the absolute truth. And here you can see how she weaves in the Muslim phrase of Sahib as-Suidzaidza. Sahib. Sahib is not a Sanskrit word at all. And then also she is addressing the common man as well as the intelligent thinking person and intellectual, whoever, because she projects it in such a beautiful image of the sun, which knows no distinction between one person and another. In another work, also, she says that Shiv shines on everyone. Sunshine reaches every household. It does not discriminate. And then she goes on to explain very difficult, complicated, mystical experiences which she has had in verses of extraordinary beauty and power. I think she is the greatest poet in Kashmiri literature, apart from her, spiritual uh, heritage and legacy. It is her contribution to the Kashmiri language, because she enriches it with so much vocabulary she has given, the proverbs she has given, and also how she has put center stage the work of artisans, common people, and she is the one who has given voice to women. And another work which I would like to quote just now is about her mystical experience. You see, this was the one to reach out to the common man, but there are, significant works which talk about very, very exclusive spiritual experiences she has had. And one of my favorite works is Dam Dam Kurmas Daman Hale, Prazalyom Deep Tananyam Zat, Andirim Prakash Nebar Thotum, Gati Rotum Taditsmastha. It means that the bellows pipe, she takes the metaphor from a blacksmith. I pressed it gently till a powerful lamp was lit. And in the light of that powerful lamp, I recognized myself. And I recognized that Shiva is with me. I grabbed him and would not let go. And you see, this is the way she talks about her exclusive, elusive experiences. There is another one in which she asks her guru, He Gora Parameshwara, Bhavtam Ichi Antarvyod, Doshvai Vapdan Kandapura, Ha Kyajitot to Fu Kyajiturun. See, this is a ordinary experience we all have. If we blow like this, we get hot breath. But if we blow like this, it's cool. And she explains that both these breaths rise from the solar plexus. And then they rise, and one halts itself here and comes out as warm. The other goes and reaches the Sahasrar, and from where it brings down cooling streams. That is why one breath is hot and the other cool. These are the kind of gems you find in Laldet. And then the next in line with this mystic stream is Rob Bhavani. And she's an underrated poet. I feel she's as great as any poet in Kashmiri. And in the mystical field, she is only next to London. And some of her works are again trying to put into words some very, very difficult to articulate experiences she has. And she talks in detail about her practices and everything. You see, Laldat belonged to the 14th century. Robbavani comes in the 17th. In between, there is a gap. But the remarkable thing is that the language that Laldat uses is comprehensible to us, most of us. But Robbavani is a difficult language because apparently she is very well versed in all kinds of, scriptures. She is very well versed in Sanskrit. She seems to be very well versed in Farsi also. That is the remarkable thing about her. Because she had, interactions with Sufis, particularly one Shah Kalandar, on an equal footing. She was not overawed by other spiritual leaders. She could hold her own. And one of her beautiful, marks, which is again such a wonderful synthetic experience, is Dih Anand Nadmai Lotan Pyala Mutsar Sakia Pilao Hu Ha B Matwala. Can you imagine somebody writing like this in the 17th century? And what she means to say is that the Dih Anand, body in bliss, there is a river of wine. O Saki, I have opened my eyes, cups of my eyes. O Saki, come and fill them up. And what is it doing to me? There's a madness in my heart. I'm saying whoo, like a Sufi. These are verses which have to be read by the younger generations so that they can take pride in the fact that they had an ancestor like this who used Sanskrit, Farsi, Kashmiri. It's difficult, I know, to, actually understand Robhavani's works straight away because they are intellectually very strong. And there is a kind of what I call brooding intellectuality about her works. They are not easily accessible, but with a little effort, they are richly rewarding. I must tell you, there is this great German scholar, Bettina Sharda Bäumer, who is a great Shaiva expert, practitioner, and she is a linguist. She knows Sanskrit, she knows German, she knows English. I'm sure she knows French also. And she was fascinated when she first got acquainted with Rumpavani. She said, these concepts are so wonderfully explicit, but only they need a little effort. But then let me come to the other stream. That is the romantic lyric. The first person who wrote the romantic lyric as we know it, what we call Vatsan, was Habba Khatun. And she was in the 16th century. You see, there are all kinds of stories about Habba Khatun as to who she was. But I'm not going into all that. I'm impressed by the lyrical beauty of her poetry. And she celebrates the Kashmiri landscape, and she talks about all the kinds of flowers and birds and whatever you see here. But the dominant theme in her poetry is love and longing. And also, she's not coy about her physical needs. I think I may raise a controversy here, but I would like to say that she is the first person in Kashmiri poetry, or maybe in other things also, who acknowledges a woman's sexuality. Because being beautiful is not enough. She wants somebody to enjoy that beauty. So all the time, her poetry is full of seductive touches. It's full of the celebration of her own qualities and beauty. And it's also a kind of an indictment of the man who doesn't come while she longs for him. See, you must be familiar with younger generation, may not be, about her complaints about the way she was treated by her mother-in-law, how she humiliated her, how she taunted her. This is a similar thing that was done to Laldev as well as Rubbawani. And the remarkable thing about these women is that they broke social norms. They walked out of bad marriages. Rubbawani did that, Laldev did that. And in one case, the remarkable thing is that she was welcomed back in her father's house. They did not reject her for being not a dutiful wife. They supported her. And Habba Khatun makes no secret of the way she is treated by people, and how sometimes her hair is pulled out, sometimes she's beaten up, and she talks about all this. And we remember, and her songs are very, very musical, full of sweet rhymes and rhythms. They can be sung. That is how they have survived, because they are a part of the Kashmiri folk singers repertoire. And also, you see, one of those things where she talks about vari var chasno jar karmyon malinyo. But then it means I'm not happy with my in-laws' house. Please do something for me, or my parents' house. Now, not then when she goes to the parents' house, there again she feels a little ill-treated by her sisters-in-law or something, and then she says perhaps it would have been better to go there. So she makes no secret of her experiences, and if blame is to be laid, she is happy to do that wherever. And also, I was telling you, there is no sense of reserve when she talks about how beautiful she is and what this absent lover is missing. And sometimes she talks mischievously how he was following me. Sometimes he was looking at me through a window. Sometimes he was stalking me when I was going home. Sometimes he was watching me from above the wall. These are lyrics of extraordinary beauty. See, like the one I was just telling you, Tho nam rum rumai, mechum bale tamanna. That he said, Dasipet vuchnamai. What came her say? He was peering at me from across the wall. Who showed him this way? No embarrassment, no reserve, very frank admission of a lover's trees, absent lovers, you see, sort of a kind of complaint against an absent lover. And so, and the next after that, this is the 16th century, and then 17th is Rabbavani, and in the 18th century, we come across another remarkable woman poet, Arnimal. Just as I said that Rabbavani is underrated, Arnimal is largely unknown, except for some of her songs, which are sung to chakri tune and other things, like Arni Rango, Shravani Hiye, Kariye, Darshan Nidhi. Okay, I have turned, you see, I was a bright pink flower, and then I have turned pale like mint. When will he come and show me his face? So in her case, the absent person is the husband. Bhavani Das Kachru was a Farsi scholar, but he did not acknowledge either her presence as his wife, because he was in the Afghan court sporting with God knows who, And she was pining for him, longing for him. And she made no secret of the way she was treated by him. In one of those poems, she talks about Hachlomnam Nindri Hache. When I was sleeping, he tore off my jewelry. Somnunam Rache. Everything I possessed, material, he took it away. And I had come with all these preparations, but he rejected me. So, also, there is this woman's voice which is articulating her pain. And by doing that, what is she doing? It's a kind of a power display. Look, you treated me like this, but I'm going to defame you forever. So it's that's why I think these are powerful women. By the fact of articulating their pain, they are exposing the social norms and also the way women were treated. And this, I can go on and on, but I think these four women, I think, are wonderful women. We should be proud of our heritage. And I would urge young people really to read them. It's not that I'm recommending my book. I'm simply wishing that people would know these women much more. That they could, you see, because we know queens and kings and um, army generals and kind of, policy makers and everything. But here are these people who belong to the greatest echelon of literature in any language. Thank you. Anything else?
Thank you, Professor Nirja, for such a... Thank you. Thank you, Nirja, for this wonderful talk regarding the remarkable women of Kashmir. You gave us the feel of their poetry and also how they faced the situations or the odds of life dignified,
yes,
in a dignified way.
They also resisted in their
now,
Can I go off now?
Yes.
Thank you so much. God bless you
yes,
all.
Yes,
and it was
Thank
a
you.
wonderful experience. I would like to listen to Usha ji also, but maybe I'll hear the recording later. Thank you very much. Wish you all the best. Bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Namaskar. Namaskar. My next eminent speaker is Dr. Usha Mujomunchi. She is president of the Information and Communication Society of India, a Fulbright scholar, has served at many prestigious organizations like the Council of Scientific and Industrial Research, New Delhi, Indian National Science Academy, New Delhi, Indian Statistical Institute, Kolkata, and the Institute of Public Administration. She has over 120 research publications and a few published volumes to her credit. Her latest book was published by Springer in 2018 under their series Studies in Big Data. Dr. Munshi has received many awards and honors, international and national. She is on the editorial board of several journals and is also member of many boards. She has organized over 50 conferences, national and international. At present, she is organizing literary programs which of late have become very popular. Dr. Usha Mujomunchi is invited to speak on some women role models of the 20th and 21st centuries who have excelled in different domains of their expertise. So I invite Usha ji. Please go on.
Thank you. It is an honor to be here and honor to share the platform with Neerja ji also.
Yeah.
Now, that today, while we are celebrating all those women who believed in themselves, I'm reminded of an African proverb which befits the Kashmiri women. However long the night, the dawn will break. To the amazing spirit of women who in the darkness find their dawn. Often the personifying adjectives used for the traditional women in India and not only in Kashmir are adjusting and accommodating. The pressure on women to conform has been strong and consistent, insidious and deadly in its motivational indoctrination. Yet there are strong women who resolutely yet delightfully catalyzed to make a difference in the social milieu. Those women of substance are an epitome of compassion, conviction, commitment, and courage, determined in their decisions to carve their futures. Now, Kashmiri women have ventured in many fields and excelled in their respective domains, ranging from academics to bureaucracy to politics, IT sector, and they are occupying very senior positions. You name it, they are there as torch bearers. The inspiring persona of these Pandit women instilled confidence, hope, and motivation to many others. The household names like that of India's first women Prime Minister, Mrs. Indira Gandhi, Indira Nehru, and Mrs. Vijayalakshmi Pandit, who was actually called Sarup Kumari Nehru, are glaring examples of motivational women. Mrs. Pandit has several firsts to her credit, being the first Indian woman to hold a cabinet portfolio way back in 1937, serving as India's ambassador to several countries. And also she became in 1953 the first women to be elected to the president of the United Nations General Assembly. The Valley has produced many more achievers than one could ever imagine, sharing a glimpse of some of these women of postmodern era across various domains. We have Dr. Sudha Kaul as one of the examples in the area of social work. Now, as a social worker and educationist, she is known for her services for the rehabilitation of physically challenged people. Sudhaji is the founder, chairperson, vice chairperson, and trustee of the Indian Institute of Cerebral Palsy. And she was also the chairperson of the committee for drafting the new disability law, the Rights of Persons with Disability Act in 2012. And she received Padma Shri in 2010 for her contribution to the disability sector. She was also credited with many books on the same subject. Now, medical sciences, we have had iconic Pandit women. Dr. Vimla Dar with Never Dies, Never Say Die Straight, and Dr. Girija Dar, a role model of syncretic culture, besides several others. Now, Dr. Girija Dar, who was born in a middle-class family and had her schooling in one of the government schools and then MBBS from Lucknow, she went to UK to polish her skills and earned FRCS and returned to Kashmir in 1964, when she joined as assistant professor in the Government Medical College, Srinagar. Now, back home, she chased all those socially outcast women with serious medical problem, and successfully she corrected their ailment with surgical intervention and rehabilitated them socially, because most of these women were otherwise abandoned by their families. Now, she's instrumental in, setting up of the Laldit Hospital of 500 beds, and it really flourished under her wings. Now, she took, while entire Kashmir remains indebted to Dr. Girija Dar for establishing gynecological and obstetric care in Kashmir, striding in the reduction of maternal mortality in the valley, she played a bigger role as an administrator. She took as principal of and dean of the Government Medical College when everything was in disarray. A very bold initiative of hers in keeping the college open. All hospitals remained operational, examinations were held regularly, and teaching continued uninterrupted. In her over-enthusiasm to help medical education and healthcare, she of course risked her life. But she exhibited boldness and sanity when it was needed most. And after her retirement in 1992, she became member of the State Public Service Commission, chairperson of Social Welfare Board, and then she was elevated to chairperson State Commission for Women. We also had, great educationists, like we had one on this panel, Professor Nirja Murthuji, who's a symbol of excellence in education. We also have Dr. Krishna Misri and some others as well. Nirja ji was here, so we know about her, much about her, and we had had the opportunity to listen to her. Dr. Krishna Misri was former principal of 2 government colleges for women in Srinagar, and I had proud privilege and opportunity to admire an extremely polished and poised woman. Now, I would like to share one anecdote which some of you must be knowing about Miss Misri. 1947, as all of us know, was a momentous year, defining moment of immense historical importance. When, as a teenager, she enrolled in the women's wing of the National Militia called Women's Self-Defense Corps, where she was exposed to progressive female role models. This women's wing was raised in turbulent times of the tribal invasion, and it provided a common platform across backgrounds, women from across backgrounds for defending their honor and dignity by bearing arms, and that's very, very important. And it was an event without a historical precedent. For the first time, a militia of women was raised in the subcontinent, and ironically, Kashmiri women took to arms when entry into the armed forces of state was statutorily forbidden to their men in the Dogra regime. It set into motion cataclysmic changes in the post-independence history and politics of the state, some of which are still reverberating. Regretfully, political commentators and historians did not cover the significance of these events and failed to correlate them to the emancipation and empowerment of Kashmiri women. Now, we have in the mass media and journalism, Sharda Ugra. She is one such trailblazer for women in sports journalism in India, who has worked for almost 3 decades now across a range of media. Currently, she is a senior editor at ESPN's Cricket for the world's biggest independent single sport website. Now, Sharda had virtually no one to draw inspiration from. She was stepping her feet into untested waters, a field which was dominated by men. But today, this territory, once considered as the fieldom of men, is getting women as well. And the credit for that must go to Sharda. Now, from journalism to politics, we have Nilmat Purana. She was the first Pandit minister in the modern era. The seeds of the modernizing and progressive outlook were sown by her grandfather, Pandit Ramchandra Dhar, who was the first graduate in J&K in the early 19th century. But regardless of the progressive family climate, her parents were looking keenly for a suitable wife for Nilmat, a difficult task even at that time. And at the age of 15, when she completed Prabhakar, which is equivalent to the matriculation degree now, she got married in 1952 to Mr. Omkarnath Vaklu, who was a young lad doing in first year of engineering at Banaras Hindu University. But undeterred by the responsibility of raising 2 children, Nilmat pursued a diploma in home science. Her stint in England and Germany, where she accompanied her husband, clicked her imagination to do something different back home in Kashmir. She was aware that a woman politician would have trouble being accepted in a conservative society where women were not freely exercising their choices, but she always had that inner calling to do something. She fought her first election in 1971, though she lost, but it was a great experience for her. But she was MLC, Member Legislative Council, nominated and became the Minister of Tourism from 1983 to 87 during National Conference regime. Now, in the field of the administrative services, in Indian administrative services, there are very few Pandit men, yet some women have made a mark. There are some outstanding bureaucrats who negotiate difficulties and challenges and cut red tape to serve the society with single-minded devotion and commitment. Srinagar-born Sudha Kaul, Chandrakanta Garyali, and Asha Kaksurup are some inspirational women in this sector. Now, Sudha Kaul was the first Kashmiri woman in the service, administrative services. In 68, after getting a master's degree in political science from the University of Kashmir, she left to teach at Lady Shri Ram College in Delhi. But the next very year, she was elected to the IAS. Now that she has recently turned to a writer, and in her writings, she talks about Kashmir. One of the famous books is The Tiger Ladies, a memoir of Kashmir, published in 2002 and has been termed by Wall Street Journal as not merely elegant and luminously so, but painfully timely. Now, currently she is in US with her family. From Renavari to Chandani Chowk to Chennai, we have Dr. Chandrakanta Garyali, one such IAS officer from 1972 batch, a bureaucrat who is still remembered in the state of Tamil Nadu for her contribution in the area of women empowerment and in other social sectors as well. No wonder Harijan Basti in Karur district of the state has been renamed as Garyali Nagar. And it's inspiring, pioneering women bureaucrat. Chandrakanta has substantially contributed in the areas of population control and poverty, reduction in the state of Tamil Nadu, and measures initiated by her to enhance women's participation in every sphere of governance. Asha Kak Sarup is another shining example. She is also IAS of 1973 batch from Himachal Pradesh cadre, and she was a Pearson Fellow of IDRC at IDRC Canada. She served as Secretary Government of India. She also served as Chief Secretary Government of Himachal Pradesh and has held several other portfolios. And even post-retirement, she has held various positions and was chairperson on various committees set by the cabinet, central cabinet. Now, Kashmiri women have excelled in sports too. Why should the sports be far behind? And they've done really pretty well in that. Ankita Rana is one such shining example, a 1993 born young girl. She's an Indian professional tennis player and the current number one in singles, both in singles from 2013 and doubles from 2019. She has won, WTA Challenger Series doubles along with 11 singles, 17 doubles titles. And in April 2018, she became only the fifth female player from India to overbreak into the top 200 of WTA single rankings. And it's a proud moment for all of us. Another shining example in sports is Geeta Zutshi, and she was a former Indian track and field athlete in 800 and 1500 meters events, won several awards. And the most proud moment for us Kashmiris is that as the top Indian woman athlete at the 1982 Asian Games in Delhi, she took the oath on behalf of the competitors during the opening ceremony. For her achievements, she has been awarded Arjuna Award and Padma Shri also. In literature, over the past several years, many writers have made their debut through their novels and poetry, and one such name is Sunita Raina Pandit and novelist Chandrakanta Vishan. Now, this Chandrakanta Vishan is a well-known name in the contemporary fiction. She has written many novels and stories in Hindi language, and including the epic Katha Satisar, that one was awarded the Vyas Samman Prize in 2005. And she has published over 200 short stories, and her writings are mainly concerning socio-political issues and women's concerns in general. But her magnum opus has been the Katha Satisar in 2001, which is written against the backdrop of terror, violence, and atrocities in Kashmir Valley. She's been a recipient of Subramaniam Bharati Award, awarded by the President of India, besides other awards. Sunita Raina Pandit is another well-known poet who writes in Kashmiri and Hindi. Born passionate poet, she picked up the pen at the age of 14, self-propelling with no resource and guidance when she decided to choose the field. The poet inside her kept knocking even after her marriage, when she found a true companion in her husband who wholeheartedly supported her in nurturing her poetic skills. After the exodus of the community in 1809, she decided to derive something from the pain, separation and restlessness, and converted the sufferings of community into poetry. Today, Her works are being translated, lyrics are being used by some singers, and one of her songs has been picked up by a short filmmaker for the film. She has received several recognition inside the fraternity and has been felicitated as well. There are many other women of great substance from Pandit community who have shined in various areas. Some names are Sunanda Vashisht, a columnist who so boldly and brilliantly exposed radical Islamist terror in Kashmir in her speech on Kashmir in Tom Lantos Human Rights Commission in Washington, D.C., as late as in 2019. Chitralekha Zitshi, who is an historian and founder of the William and Mary University Summer Study Program in Goa and Bangalore, which she directed in 2005 and 13. We have Tanvi, very young girl, Tanvi Rana, first and the youngest woman from J&K to become a commercial pilot at the age of 18 in 2016. We can go on and on celebrating the contribution of inspirational Kashmiri Pandit women, but I know there is a paucity of time, and thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you very much for giving this amazingly beautiful description of the remarkable women of Kashmir. And now it is my turn, and I am to shed some light on the philosophical background of the feminine as supreme power. Before doing so, let me introduce myself briefly. I am the youngest daughter of Pandit Janakinath Kaul, Kamal, who was one of the primary disciples of Swami Lakshmanjo. My father was fond of studying Vedanta and Kashmir Shaivism. Under his influence, I pursued my studies in Sanskrit, did my master's and obtained PhD in Buddhist studies. My book, Buddhist Savants of Kashmir, Their Contributions Abroad, was published in 1987. After getting displaced from Kashmir in 1990, I joined IGNCA in New Delhi in the year 1991. I completed my term at IGNC in 1990 as head of the Kalakosha division. My years at IGNCA were quite fulfilling, for I got an opportunity to expose myself to various branches of learning and could lay my hands on interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary approach of research on the field in the field of humanities. I have handled hundreds of research projects at IGNCA, which have culminated in prestigious publications, which are well received by the international community of scholars. And these publications have been brought out under the publication series known as Kala Tattva Kosh on Indian key terms, Kala Moola Shastra on fundamental texts on the arts, and Kala Samalojana on the are the analytical and critical studies on arts. And I had the opportunity of editing few volumes from these series. My family background combined with my profession attracted me to attend some studies towards the cultural and historiography of Kashmir, cultural studies and historiography of Kashmir. And I got an opportunity to edit a book on Kashmiri Pandits way back in 2003. It was first published in 1956, before I was born. In every seminar or conference in India and abroad, I have been presenting my research papers on any aspect of Kashmir. This was the only way that I could pursue my interest. Also, the response from the scholars to my published papers has always been a source of encouragement that has been empowering me to continue my interest. Organizing 4 conferences on Acharya Abhinav Gupta has been a great achievement for me personally. These conferences were organized through IGNCA in the year 2016-17 during the Millennium Celebration year of Acharya Abhinavgupta, the genius from Kashmir, who gave direction to the understanding of Indian art and culture. His works have influenced the entire subcontinent. I have edited the proceedings of these 4 conferences in 2 volumes, and these are going to be published by IGNCA in near future. Now, coming to the topic, the philosophical background of the feminine supreme defined as supreme power. For the understanding this, we must first understand that Indian tradition has been a continuous or evolving tradition, and the Kashmiri tradition requires to be seen in the overall framework of the Indian tradition. In this process, we find the Vedic seers as nature worshippers. They express their ideas in the garb of worldly affairs. Thus, we find Akasha as referred as masculine and Prithvi as feminine, sun as masculine and moon as feminine. Agni, like that, we find Agni and Apa, or mountains and rivers, and you can go on and on. These were the gods and goddesses worshipped in the natural form by performing yajna to propitiate them for receiving their blessings in the form of favorable weather, seasons, harmlessness from natural disasters, etc. With the passage of time, all these gods and goddesses received human form. Their attributes were creatively described by showing them with particular number of faces, arms, their vahanas, etc., etc. The temples were built to enshrine these gods and goddesses, where rituals were performed on daily and occasional basis. The temple activities involved the whole community. This gave them the sustenance to the whole community. In this way, spirituality and mundane life was going hand in hand. It is seen that the humans, for that matter, even animals, have great proximity with the mother. It is found mother is the closest to any living phenomena. Mother represents pure love and devotion towards mother is she is the symbol of pure love and devotion. This gave rise to Shaktism, representing the supreme power that pervades each and every aspect of creation. Shaiva Tantras of Kashmir deal with both Shiva and Shakti. One is incomplete without the other. And Shiva without Shakti is Shava, that means dead body or dead person. To understand it further deeply, Shakti represents the warmness of the sun or soothing effect of the moon, the power of quenching the thirst in water, the prana in human body represents Shakti. So, through their continuous contemplation, the sadhakas, in present context, the sadhakas of Kashmir, perceived the dynamism of Shakti working at different levels and attempted to achieve those stages. These experiences of the sadhakas were expressed through their stotras or many texts which they wrote, and they abound with mystic explanations which are quite engaging. The women of Kashmir or India represent this supreme power as they have been represented as such. Adi Shankaracharya came to Kashmir. By that time, he did not approve the Shakti as the ultimate source or the supreme power. But in Kashmir, he was motivated, it is said, by a woman of Kashmir to experience the supremacy of this power. It is also said that he honored the Kashmiri woman with whom he had the discussion and got impressed by her knowledge and wisdom. And he honored her with a headgear, which we call taranga. Taranga, by the passage of time, represented the Kundalini Shakti that stays dormant in every human body and requires to be awakened. We have lately, we have had a very of a highest Pandit Jialal Saraf. Who was a very fine scholar, but also a sadhaka of who was a devotee of Sharika, and he has. We don't have much time, so I would like to conclude. There is so much to speak in this regard, but now I would like to conclude with a lullaby, which this great sadhaka of the Sharika has written for children, and it is very inspiring, which inspires a child to awaken his Kundalini. It goes like, Zun mazuni angan angan zetai ziv yam kasgani rai kya ditui khasvun gur vasvin now tat kathvas tunis kunni tun kya ditnai khasvun gur vasvin now tat kathvas tunis kunni tati vichmamne na Tami kya tui gyau tira sui burum jejire lajim nazne Kaul lagim asne luk lagim vichine sukusmyon kalataruk. So this is a dialogue between mother and child. Mother says that a human body is there is prana, and also there is the consciousness in every human body. But who is conscious of that? The one who knows it is conscious of that, and this consciousness, what is it gives us, the prana, what gives us it, khasvun gur vasvin now. Khasvun is outhailing breath, and vasvina is inhaling breath, and through that we receive, through the practice of pranayama, or through the practice of yoga, I reach up to the tune of the navel, and there I found a mamnihna, coiled. It refers to coiled kundalini, and I with that energy, I gave that energy to that kundalini, and she rose, and it started moving. And by this movement, I went into ecstasy, and the people who could not understand me, they started laughing at me, but the knowledgeable people, they started looking at me keenly. And the mother says, who is that? And the son says, who is that? Mother says, this is my Kolatark. He is the light of my clan. So this is a very beautiful lullaby, which our youngsters must know. Not just this lullaby, our traditions, our rituals, they have so much concealed in them, which require to be understood and enjoyed, and which are helpful to awaken us to spirituality. Is not something which is just doing puja and all that, which is understood by youngsters, generally understood. It has something beyond, which takes us to the supreme state of enjoyment. And With this, I thank my co-panelists, Professor Nirja Murthuji and Dr. Usha Mujomunchi, for sparing time and accepting my invitation. And I also take this opportunity to thank and express my gratitude to GKPD, Global Kashmiri Pandit Diaspora, for giving us this opportunity. Thank you very much. Namaskar.